The moment my secret stopped belonging to me, I felt as though every mirror in the world had turned against me. Until that afternoon, I believed I had hidden everything perfectly. The carefully folded dresses tucked inside an old suitcase beneath my bed. The makeup palette hidden inside an empty shoebox. The wig resting on a mannequin head wrapped in a blanket as though it were something fragile that daylight itself could destroy. Every evening, when the house grew quiet, I would unlock that tiny world and become someone who somehow felt closer to myself than the person everyone greeted every morning. The mirror became my closest companion. It never laughed. It never questioned. It simply reflected whoever stood before it. Sometimes it showed a nervous young man trying to understand himself. Other times it revealed a graceful version of me that only existed behind locked doors and drawn curtains. Whenever I became overwhelmed, I whispered the same words to my reflection. The mirror only tells the truth. That sentence became my anchor. During the day, however, life followed a different script. I worked at a local design studio where everyone admired confidence, charisma, and polished appearances. I possessed the creativity, but never the confidence. My sketches often received praise while I remained invisible. Then there was Daniel. Everything seemed effortless for him. He was taller, louder, endlessly charming, and somehow capable of making every room orbit around him. Clients remembered his smile before they remembered the presentation itself. The hardest part wasn't competing with him professionally. It was competing for Emma. Emma had joined the studio only 6 months earlier, yet somehow she transformed ordinary mornings into something brighter. She noticed everyone's birthdays, remembered favorite coffees, and somehow made people feel seen. I never gathered enough courage to tell her how much I admired her. Daniel did. He flirted openly. He walked her home after work. He always found excuses to stand beside her. Meanwhile, I watched from a comfortable distance, convincing myself there would eventually be a perfect moment. Perfect moments rarely arrive. One rainy Friday evening, everyone left the office early except Daniel and me. A major presentation was due Monday morning, and both of us stayed behind polishing our projects. My phone buzzed. A message from my younger sister. "I'm borrowing your suitcase. Hope that's okay." My heart stopped. The wrong suitcase. The one beneath my bed. I immediately called her. No answer. I packed my laptop, rushed outside, and practically sprinted through the rain toward the parking lot. Halfway there, I realized something. I'd left my sketch portfolio behind. Cursing under my breath, I hurried back upstairs. The office lights were nearly off. Daniel stood near my desk, holding my portfolio. Beside it was a small cosmetic pouch I'd accidentally left inside my backpack that morning. He looked at the brushes, the compact mirror, the lipstick. His eyebrows rose. I froze. For several endless seconds, neither of us spoke. He slowly looked at me. "You wear makeup?" The words weren't shouted. They didn't need to be. I felt every ounce of warmth leave my body. It's not what you think." He glanced back toward the mirror inside the compact. My own frightened reflection stared back at me. The mirror only tells the truth. The phrase escaped my lips without thinking. He tilted his head. "What?" "Nothing." He stepped closer, surprisingly calm. "You don't have to explain." Relief rushed through me so quickly I nearly collapsed. Maybe this wasn't going to be a disaster. Maybe I judged him unfairly. Then his eyes drifted toward the corner of my portfolio. A fashion illustration. Not of a random model. Of myself. Long hair. Elegant dress. The exact outfit hidden inside my suitcase at home. He studied it carefully before looking back at me. "So," his voice carried quiet certainty now. "This isn't just for drawing." Every excuse I'd rehearsed for years disappeared. I couldn't lie anymore. I nodded. His expression became impossible to read. "I've never told anyone." "I can see that." "I'm asking you." The words barely came out. "Please don't tell anyone." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he closed the compact mirror and handed it back to me. "I won't say anything." Those 5 words felt like being rescued from drowning. I thanked him more times than I could count. The weekend passed in nervous silence. Monday arrived. Everything seemed normal. Daniel smiled. Emma greeted me warmly. The presentation went well. By lunchtime, I had almost convinced myself my secret was still safe. Then I walked toward the rooftop cafe and heard laughter drifting from behind the open terrace doors. Emma stood beside Daniel. They hadn't noticed me. I can't believe he trusted me with something like that, Daniel said quietly. Emma looked puzzled. What do you mean? Daniel hesitated. You have to promise not to tell anyone. My heartbeat became painfully loud. The mirror only tells the truth. The sentence echoed inside my mind like a warning. I should have walked away. Instead, I listened. Every instinct told me to leave before I heard another word. Instead, I stayed frozen behind the half-open terrace door, my hand gripping the cold metal handle so tightly my fingers hurt. My heartbeat seemed loud enough for both of them to hear. Daniel lowered his voice. It's about Ethan. My name. Just hearing it spoken made my stomach sink. Emma frowned. What about him? He trusted me with something personal. For one impossible second, hope returned. Maybe he really was protecting me. Maybe he was only explaining why I'd seemed nervous. Then he sighed. He secretly dresses as a woman. The world didn't explode. No thunder cracked across the sky. The city outside continued moving exactly as it always had. Cars passed. People laughed somewhere below. Coffee machines hummed inside the cafe. Only my world stopped. Emma didn't laugh. She didn't gasp. She simply looked surprised. Are you serious? Daniel nodded. I found makeup, clothes, sketches, everything. Silence. The kind that stretches long enough to let fear invent 1,000 endings. I shouldn't have told you, he admitted. But I didn't know who else to talk to. You shouldn't have told anyone, Emma replied quietly. Those words should have comforted me. Instead, shame drowned out every other emotion. It didn't matter that she disagreed. She knew. The one person whose opinion mattered most now carried a picture of me I had never been brave enough to share. Without realizing it, I stepped backward. The terrace door creaked. Both of them turned. Daniel's expression collapsed. Emma's eyes widened. Our gazes met for only a second, but it felt like an entire lifetime. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. I simply turned and walked away. No dramatic confrontation. No shouting. Just footsteps echoing through an empty hallway. That evening, I stood in front of the mirror at home. The familiar reflection looked different. Not because my appearance had changed, because I had. I opened the suitcase beneath my bed. Inside lay the carefully folded dress that had always given me courage. Tonight it felt unbearably heavy. I held it against my chest and whispered the phrase that had comforted me for years. The mirror only tells the truth. But another thought answered. People don't always know what to do with the truth. I folded the dress back into the suitcase. For the first time in years, I closed it without changing. Days passed. I stopped staying late at work. I stopped laughing at lunch. I spoke only when necessary. The office buzzed with ordinary conversations, yet every whispered sentence felt like it might be about me. Were they looking longer than usual? Were they noticing things they had ignored before? Or was guilt creating enemies that didn't exist? Fear has a strange way of rewriting reality. One afternoon, Emma quietly approached my desk. Can we talk? I have work. It'll only take a minute. I'd rather not. She didn't leave. Instead, she gently placed a small compact mirror beside my keyboard. I stared at it. You left this in the meeting room yesterday, she said softly. The same compact, the same mirror, the object that had witnessed every version of me. I didn't open it, she added. I looked up. Why? Because it wasn't mine. Such a simple answer. Yet somehow it carried more respect than I had given myself all week. She hesitated before continuing. I want you to know something. I remained silent. What Daniel told me doesn't change the person I've known these past months. I finally found my voice. It changed enough. It changed what I know. She shook her head gently. It didn't change who you are. I wanted to believe her. More than anything. But belief isn't something fear surrenders easily. I wish you had heard it from me, I admitted. So do I. Neither of us spoke for several moments. Finally she smiled, not with pity but with kindness. When you're ready, tell your story yourself. Then she walked away. Her words lingered long after she disappeared. Tell your story yourself. For the first time since everything had happened, I realized something. Daniel hadn't actually exposed me to everyone. He had betrayed my trust. But the crowd I had imagined, the endless whispers, the entire office pointing fingers, most of it existed only inside my own frightened imagination. The real damage wasn't only that my secret had been revealed. It was that I had started believing I should disappear because of it. Still, one question haunted me. Why had Daniel done it? Was it carelessness, jealousy, or something else entirely? The answer arrived 3 days later. The company announced that one employee would represent the studio at a prestigious national design exhibition. The winner would receive a promotion, and they would work closely with Emma for the next 6 months. Daniel smiled the moment the announcement ended. Then he looked directly at me. It wasn't a victorious smile. It was the smile of someone who believed the competition had already surrendered. At that moment, I understood. He hadn't just revealed my secret. He had expected it to break me. And for a while, it almost had. For days, I carried Daniel's smile in my mind, like an unfinished sentence. Not because it frightened me anymore, because it challenged me. I kept replaying everything that had happened, trying to decide whether my story would forever be defined by the moment someone else spoke for me. Every memory circled back to the same object waiting quietly on my bedroom dresser. The mirror. It had never chosen my fears. It had only reflected them. One evening I stood before it again. The room was silent except for the distant sound of rain tapping against the window. I unlocked the old suitcase, lifted out the dress I hadn't touched since that terrible afternoon, and carefully laid it across the bed. My hands trembled, not from shame this time, from uncertainty. I slowly prepared myself, taking the same patient steps I had taken dozens of times before. Every movement felt different now. I wasn't hiding from the world. I wasn't pretending to be someone else. I was simply allowing another honest part of myself to exist. When I finally looked into the mirror, I whispered the familiar words. The mirror only tells the truth. This time they sounded less like a secret and more like a promise. I smiled. It was small, but it was real. The design exhibition consumed the next several weeks. Every employee presented an original concept inspired by the theme identity. Most people designed around fashion trends, architecture, or branding. I couldn't. My entire life had become that word. Instead of creating something polished and predictable, I designed a series called Reflections. Each illustration showed the same person standing before the same mirror. In the first image, the reflection copied them perfectly. In the second, the reflection smiled while the person looked frightened. In the third, the reflection reached toward the viewer while the person hesitated. In the final piece, there was no difference between the two. The mirror no longer separated them. It connected them. When I finished the collection, I hesitated before submitting it. It wasn't because I doubted the artwork. It was because I knew people would ask what inspired it. For the first time, I decided not to invent another explanation. Presentation day arrived. The exhibition hall buzzed with conversations and camera flashes. Designers moved between displays, explaining techniques and inspirations. My hands were colder than they had ever been. Then Emma appeared beside me. "You ready?" I laughed nervously. I don't think anyone's ever ready. She looked at my artwork for a long moment. "They're beautiful. They're honest." "I know." Her answer meant more than any compliment. Across the room, Daniel presented his own project with his usual confidence. People applauded politely. Then visitors began gathering around my display. Not because it was louder, because it felt personal. One judge stopped in front of the final illustration. What inspired this series? The old version of me would have talked about symbolism, composition, color theory, anything except the truth. Instead, I took a slow breath. It comes from learning that hiding yourself can become more exhausting than being understood. The room grew quiet. My work isn't about becoming someone different. It's about realizing that every part of us deserves honesty, even the parts we protect out of fear. No dramatic gasps followed. No laughter. Only thoughtful silence. The kind that means people are listening instead of judging. When I finished, several visitors thanked me. One young artist quietly admitted that my words reminded them of their own struggle with feeling accepted for who they were. Another said the paintings made them think about the masks everyone wears in everyday life. In that moment, my story stopped belonging only to me. It became something others could recognize within themselves. The winners were announced just before sunset. Third place, second place. Then the director unfolded the final card. First place, Ethan. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd imagined hearing my own name. Applause filled the hall. Emma hugged me before I even realized I had won. The promotion, the exhibition, months of hard work. None of it erased what had happened, but it proved something far more important. Someone else's betrayal did not get to write the final chapter of my life. As people celebrated, Daniel approached me. For the first time since we'd met, he seemed unsure of himself. I owe you an apology. I looked at him quietly. I told myself I was only sharing a secret with one person. He lowered his eyes. But the truth is, I was jealous. He glanced toward Emma. I thought if you lost your confidence, I'd have nothing to compete against. There it was. Not hatred. Not cruelty. Fear. The same emotion that had trapped me for years. I can't change what I did, he said. No, I replied calmly. You can't. He nodded. I'm sorry. Forgiveness didn't arrive all at once. Some wounds heal slowly, but carrying anger forever would only have built another prison. I hope you become someone who never does that to another person. He quietly said, I hope so too. Then he walked away. Months later, life looked different. Not perfect, just honest. Emma and I remained close friends, and the awkwardness that once stood between us slowly disappeared. Whatever dreams I had once imagined about romance no longer mattered as much as the trust we had built. Some relationships become meaningful in ways we never expect. At home, the old suitcase no longer lived beneath my bed. It rested openly inside my closet. The dress remained carefully folded inside, not because it was hiding, because it no longer needed to. Sometimes, after long days, I still stood before the mirror, not searching for answers, not questioning who I was, simply smiling at the reflection waiting on the other side. The mirror only tells the truth. I still whispered those words. Only now, they no longer sounded like a secret. They sounded like freedom. And looking back, I realized something that took me years to understand. My love rival may have exposed my secret. He may have believed he had won everything. But in trying to take away my confidence, he unknowingly led me toward the one thing no one else could ever give or steal. The courage to live honestly.